Spoiler alert, clamshells will not help your knee cave. Stick around to find out why. Welcome back to another episode of Technique Tuesday, this time actually on a Tuesday. It's the show where we take a look at team activated members' lifts and make them better. And if you want help with your training, hurry up and hit the link below to join the community. Today, we've got Chris, and he is taking a box squat single. This is the second box squat form check that Chris has posted, and what I'll say as we're taking a look at it is it looks a whole lot better than the first. Other than getting him to stop tap dancing through his walkout, there isn't much I want to change here, but Chris was curious if he should be worried about the little tiny bit of knee cave he had coming off of the box. First off, probably not. Second off, if your knees look like this on a squat, the last thing you should ever do is try to shove your knees out harder. To make his squat more efficient and answer why shoving the knees out harder is probably a bad idea, first we've got to ask, why are the knees coming in the first place? And we've got to go over here to talk about deadlifts to better understand inwards and outwards knee travel on a squat. Because you're probably pretty familiar with the idea that a sumo deadlift is a whole lot of adductor. This is because when we have outwards knee travel, hip extension doesn't just happen forwards and backwards in the sagittal plane, it actually happens along the plane of the femur. Good visual evidence of this comes from paying attention to my knees as I stand up. Even if the knees are not collapsing in, there still is inwards knee travel as I drive up to lockout. And that right there is the adductors pulling the leg inwards to create that hip extension along the plane of the femur. Bringing this back to the squat, the more out the knees are, the more the adductors need to contribute in order to create that hip extension, which is part of why when I used to squat like this, my dumbass would always ding his adductors. But that's a topic for another video altogether. How this all applies back to Chris's squat requires an understanding that our nervous system is pretty smart and it is going to try to put us where we have the best chance of actually lifting the weight. Because ultimately, the expression of technique during the power lifts is going to be our body putting us in the positions where we are going to be the strongest. So if you are going from one position, knees out, to another, knees slightly in, it is because you weren't strong enough to complete the lift with the knees out, so your body put you more knees in to make the leverages more favorable. We can manage this knee travel by either modifying position to do better with the strength that we have, or working on building strength to do better with the positions that we're already in. First, we're going to talk about managing position, because if you are someone who cues shoving your knees out as hard as freaking possible, they might just be ending up too far out for your hip strength, and that is why they always shoot back in no matter what they do. So instead of trying to shove your knees out, I would rather see a lifter focus on foot pressure trying to spread the floor, not think about the knees at all, and let the knees end up where they belong, and in most cases, they're going to track a whole lot better. But if doing that causes your knees to look like this in the bottom of a squat, that probably isn't the greatest thing either, and will want to modify your stance, bring it in a little bit so that your ankles end up stacked underneath where your knees are going to end up anyways. And in either case, position probably isn't going to do all of it, so we should work on strength as well. It's very tempting to think that the answer to knees coming in is going to be more work pulling the knees out. But if we go back to the leverage analysis, when we realize that knees out asks for more adductor, we can start to think about how the load is redistributed as our knees collapse. Because understanding what is happening mechanically with the knee collapse will tell us what the body is loading towards and what the body is avoiding putting more load on. We've already said it at least twice in this video. The more out the knees are, the more adductor magnus is required for that hip extension. So if the knees are coming in, it means that we do not have enough adductor magnus to support the knee out extension. Then to paint the whole picture, we need to think about what the other hip extensor muscles are doing as those knees come in. Spoiler alert, the hamstrings are doing a little bit here, but it's not enough to be worried about it in the context of this video. That leaves the other big player, your butt cheeks, which are not only a major hip extensor, but also a hip abductor. With the glutes being a hip abductor, that means that if the hips are going to adduct as the knees come in, that is the glute allowing itself to become longer. So the knees coming in on a squat is allowing the glutes to further lengthen, therefore giving them more potential to create hip extension, whereas it's letting the adductor magnus shorten and making the leverages a little bit easier on it. So it's not glute weakness at all, and cranking on clamshells is only going to make your problems worse because you're letting your glutes get stronger at contracting out of that adducted position. The solution is going to be adductor training, and we're going to come at it from two different angles. The first angle is going to be directly training the adductors with something like a Copenhagen dip, and we can make this even better for the extensor component of the adductor magnus by letting the toes roll up on the way down and then pulling the toes down on the way up. The second angle is going to be doing something like a split squat so that we can teach our glutes and adductors to work together to control the abduction and adduction through hip extension. And the last thing to say, if you have a lot of knee valgus during your squat, is that it's probably not as worrisome as a lot of social media influencers want you to think it is. Injury risk is less related to the amount of valgus you have and more related to whether or not you are prepared for the loads that you are training with. If you exceed your preparedness, it won't matter how good your knee tracking is, you are going to have a higher injury risk. If you are within your level of preparedness, it doesn't matter what your knee tracking is, as long as you are within your level of preparedness, you should be relatively safe. And when I'm thinking about fixing knee valgus, I'm coming at it from the perspective of trying to make a lift more efficient. So guys, if you are concerned about knee valgus during your squat, quit shoving your knees out to oblivion and focus on managing your foot pressure, and the knees are going to end up where they belong. If that still doesn't help, think about modifying your stance to improve your stack in the bottom end, and do not forget to strengthen the shit out of your adductors and then use something unilateral to build that coordination. And if you guys want to take a deeper dive with me into hip biomechanics, hop into the Team Activated community on School, because we are going to be having a hip biomechanics live lecture Saturday, September 7th at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for the entire team. So as long as you're a member, you're going to be able to access that lecture, and I will be uploading the recording afterwards into the classroom. So if you can't show up, you will still be able to get the material. These live lectures are going to be happening bi-weekly with a new topic every other Saturday. So if you want to advance your education as a powerlifter or a powerlifting coach, Team Activated is going to be absolutely a phenomenal resource for you. So sign up if you give a shit, because it will give you more shits to give. Inside of Team Activated, you are going to find a place to post training footage to get form checks in order to better optimize your lifts from both a technical and strength perspective. And you'll be able to use the community to ask any question that you have on programming, training, technique, nutrition, even pain and injury. In addition to all of that, there is the exclusive classroom library where I am uploading new course material every single week in order to better your education and understanding as a powerlifter. And due to popular demand, we now have team programming options. So if you guys need a program, you can follow along in the group. So guys, if you want to better yourself as a lifter or a coach, hit that link, sign up. You will not regret it.